Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. Here we are once again to dive into a film, tear it apart, and let you know just what we think about it. And when I say we, it's not just me here on my own banging on about a film. I'm joined by a man of light and big and grand emotion who sees the world in a unique way, a unique cinematic and filmic way. And he's here to share those unique filmic cinematic thoughts with us today. It is, of course, Callum. How are you doing?
Good evening again.
Good evening. We're having a nice run for evening records at the moment, just as the slow setting sun tickles through my window and I look over the landscape and it's like, yes, summer is nearly upon us.
I'm in a log cabin, a wood cabin, log
Yes.
cabin.
I think it's both of those. It can be both of those things.
Yeah,
Logs are made of wood.
Logs are made of, yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't know why it took me so long to conceptualize
It's
that.
not a riddle.
It could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Don't know what for, but I'm okay. I'm okay, though. What have we been up to? Went for a lovely walk. I walked from Rye to Hastings.
I mean, that sounds just delightful in itself. It could be like an old poem.
From Rye to Hastings, yeah. He who went from Rye landed in Hastings from a distant land.
I just picture you skipping along a country lane with a stick with a handkerchief wrapped up on the back with some sandwiches and a glass bottle of milk in there as you make your way along this long journey.
Why am I some sort of like Beatrix Potter character?
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. You know, the birds are singing and flying alongside to you as you're waving at every farmer that you go past.
I did take a cracking sandwich with me though.
Talk me through it. Hang on, I want to know everything about this sandwich.
So I got it from the train station at King's Cross Station.
Lovely.
From the M&S Food.
We're on to a good start here.
Yeah. Egg, Cornish cruncher, red onion.
What kind of bread we're talking?
That didn't have the reaction I thought it would. You were just like,
sorry,
okay.
I thought you still had more to say.
No, just egg, cheese, and red onion on brown bread.
I think it's the Cornish cruncher that threw me off a bit.
It was blooming good because I love the cheese and onion sandwiches that they do. Supermarket cheese and onion sandwiches from the meal deal section. I love those. I mean, when we went to Kendal Calling, for example, I took 4 of them with me or 3 of them, but I couldn't eat them after about 2 days because they turned fizzy. But like, you know, there's when they're fresh, when they're fresh,
yeah.
They're quite tasty, but it's like this, but with egg. And I got that. I got 2 pork pies. Fantastic.
I don't think egg sandwiches get the love they deserve. I think a lot of people look at them as a bit archaic, but also look at them as a bit disgusting. But it's one of the greatest, yes, humble sandwiches, but I think it gives so much depth of flavour, but just enjoyability in a sandwich. I'm always there on the front line, on the picket line, campaigning for the egg sandwich.
Absolutely. I love egg sandwiches.
Red onion, chutney,
well,
whatever you want.
I took 2 types of egg sandwich with me. So I took the egg, cheese, and red onion, and then I took the it was the ultimate M&S egg sandwich, and it was like the ultimate sandwich.
Is this the Cornish cruncher, or was this beyond?
No,
the Cornish
so
cruncher?
this was another one. It was egg, mustard, and spinach.
Oh yeah, that. Now you're speaking my language. Yeah. Get me some mustard on a sandwich. I'm a big fan of the mustard mayo combination. I'll tell you where that comes in to its own. We're talking hams, salamis, pastrami's, stacked up, bit of rocket, maybe a bit of cucumber. People say that's rogue, but I like the crunch in there. And then you've got your mayo, your mustard, Dijon preferably, and then
Dijon's
your mayo.
Good, yeah.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah. So I took 2 lots of sandwiches with me because the walk itself was about 15 miles. So I was like, I needed sustenance. Had the sandwiches, had a pork pie, had some crisps, overlooking The English Channel.
Wow.
It was very nice. Glorious weather. I didn't see. I half expected to see Nigel Farage patrolling it with a shotgun, but I didn't, which was nice.
Yeah.
Not to see him, I mean.
You were left alone on this occasion.
Yeah, thank God. And what else did I have?
But it is picnic season now, isn't it? Picnic season's absolutely just started. I went for a walk up Kinder Scout recently, and I think the main reason I wanted to do that was so I could make a picnic. And the selection of cold meats, mustard and mayo was out in force on that occasion. I even took a pot of mustard up the hill with me to put on my Scotch egg when I got up there.
That's fantastic.
That is living. I tell you what, there was a trail running competition going on. They're running past me thinking, I wish I had the same idea as that guy bringing a bit of Dijon up Kinder Scout. It was glorious. Spring is for mustard. It's a mustard sauce. It's a spring sauce is mustard.
Mustard in spring.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Mustard brought, was it Coleman's in a jar with a knife?
It was Aldi's answer to Coleman's. Very good though.
I don't know. Was it?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
I had a cracking Scotch egg at weekend though. In and around the Greater Manchester area, there's a revolving makers market that pops up.
You're going to say there was a revolving Scotch egg that everyone just takes a piece out of.
Yeah, it's just there on a stick, and you just get a nibble on it. And it brings the whole village together.
Like in the 19th century, I think it was, like there was a World's Fair in Glasgow, and they bought the world's largest thing of cheese. So it's like that, but a Scotch egg version.
Yeah, maybe the World's Fair franchise can be reinvigorated by the largest Scotch egg ever to be made and revolved on a stick. Maybe it could be in one of our hometowns so we can represent it, we can cut the ribbon, and that could re-energise that historic format. World's Fairs, leaders, organisers of the past, you know where we are. We're happy to step in.
Yeah. So you had the best Scotch egg. What was? Why was it so good?
Well, it was from this makers market, which on this occasion was in the Cheadle area of Greater Manchester, and went for a traditional. Yeah, lovely. The gooey yolk. You know, it was the sign, I think, of a well-crafted Scotch egg when it's got the soft boil in the centre. You've got that.
Was it warm though? Because that only works if it's warm.
It wasn't warm.
I don't know, because the soft egg, the soft yolk is good if it's the whole thing's warm. That works.
It wasn't runny. It wasn't runny.
Okay.
It was just. It was almost golden. It was that orangey centre of the sun glow as you cut it open and you see it staring back at you. And there's no better. Well, there's not many better feelings than the centre of a Scotch egg illuminating back at you and that glow washing over your face, and it always brings a smile to me. And on this occasion,
why does this sound awful? Like...
Why? What's so awful about a Scotch egg? We've had this debate before when I've told you about having a Scotch egg as a cinema snack.
That's obscene. I'm sorry. That's absolutely obscene.
I've not done that for a while, but this was well more in my period of life where I had to get the train to get to the cinema, and often I'd go to a early evening screening. But that's, of course, taking you through tea time then. And because I'd have to get the train back, and there's only one every hour, it could get late until I get back. So I'd go into the Morrison's across the road from the cinema and just raid the deli counter and then eat my tea in the cinema whilst I was watching the film.
The deli counter.
I especially had a great one when I was watching Killers of the Flower Moon, because that's
like
about 2 hours
long,
40, if not longer. And I was like, I definitely have to have my tea during this. And yeah, we're talking Scotch eggs, we're talking pork pies, we're talking quiche, we're talking chicken tikka on a stick, and then sweet and salted popcorn there as well.
Jesus.
I've not done it for a while. It does always play in the back of my mind when I consider taking a Scotch egg into the cinema of your voice. And in my defence, the cinema I used to go to where I used to live was very quiet. These screens would be a handful of people at most in there, and I'm sitting well on my own. Whereas when we went watching this film, packed out, I wouldn't have cracked open a Scotch egg in a busy cinema.
I went to the cinema once with a mate, and he took burnt ends with him as a cinema snack.
What's burnt ends?
Bits of meat that like from an all-you-can-eat meat place. We'd been to this steakhouse like place beforehand, and like he didn't eat all the food, so he had like burnt ends, like bits of bristle and brisket and things marinated, and he got them to put it in like a little tray for him to keep. And he just cracked them open in the cinema, and it was hilarious because it was. What are we going to see? Joker 2, one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. And he was like, "Would you like a burnt end?" I was like, "No, I don't."
What kind of proposition's that?
I don't want a burnt end. Like, what is this? This is not a cinema snack. And it was just really funny. It was really funny. Because normal people would get popcorn.
Yeah.
I know.
There's one for the listeners.
I nearly swore. This is a clean podcast. I nearly swore then, but I didn't.
There's one for the listeners. The weirdest thing. What is the weirdest thing you have eaten or seen being eaten in a cinema? Beyond my Scotch egg experience, I remember taking a massive burrito in from Taco Bell when I was about 17. Maybe I was 17. And yeah, you realise as soon as you sit down that the sense of that is really wafting through the cinema and the self-consciousness of eating it is there. But what you're going to do, the only way to get rid of that is to chomp down on it. I never went again on the burrito front, but I have, when I look back, taken a few weird things into the cinema. Don't always make a habit of it, but I'd like to hear from the listeners. What is the weirdest thing you've taken in or seen being consumed in a cinema? Write in.
Can't wait.
Right, back to my Scotch egg.
Can't wait to see those comments on TikTok.
Yeah.
What's the most horrible thing you've taken to the cinema? One of you.
Back to the Scotch egg that I had at weekend. So it's glowing. It's glowing back at me. The traditional one, and the traditional one was fantastic. Depth of flavour, well seasoned meat on the outside, nicely cooked egg. But the rogue one that I went for as a secondary Scotch egg, Spanish, it had chorizo in it.
Oh, I've had them before. They're all right. Yeah,
packed a bit of a spicy punch straight away. It topped the traditional one. Unbelievable. If you get chance at some kind of food fair or festival to get your hands on a Spanish style Scotch egg, I would wholeheartedly encourage you to dive in.
You ever had the black pudding ones?
No, that was next on the list for me. They had them there. There were 6 different types, and black pudding was there, and I got very close to ordering it, but opted for Spanish in the end.
The chorizo ones are good. They tend to turn into their own meal, at some point.
But that's the beauty of a Scotch egg. That's why it's a great cinema snack.
No, I'm not having it. No.
And I think the Scotch egg is a perfect snack as well because it
is, but not for the cinema. Not for the cinema.
Self-contained and easy to eat, but it's really filling for what it is.
I have a problem with people who go to the cinema and have like nachos and hot dogs and pizzas. And I was, what are you doing? It's like, it's not a restaurant. Like, eat before you come. Like, yeah. I'm not sitting here.
I get it.
Listening to
that.
You, like,
this is
eat
what
all
I would
this
say,
stuff.
I'm not a huge snacker in the cinema. I'm like, if I was sat at home now, would I be eating like an absolute metric ton of popcorn? No. But if it falls in a meal time, I'm not skipping a meal for a film.
I'm not skipping a meal. Okay.
But to be fair, this weekend, because Devil Wears Prada 2 felt like something that needed a little drink, so I took a couple of cans of sparkling white wine into the cinema with me.
That'll do it. Well, on that note, shall I?
Yes.
Shall now
Let's do it.
that
There's only so long we can talk about Scotch eggs for.
Indeed. I mean, we went to see Devil Wears Prada 2, the sequel, shockingly, to The Devil Wears Prada. Because it's so, eloquently and, what's the word? Creatively named The Devil Wears Prada 2. David Frankel directed the film. Essentially, same cast, really. So Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci. And then essentially kind of picks up where the first left off, but several years down the line, I suppose. So about 20 years after Andy Sachs, who's played by Anne Hathaway, she's become quite a prolific and important journalist living in New York. She's cares about the sanctity of the written word and believes that accurate reporting and accurate journalism and accurate stories can really sell and can really change the way people see the world. She's quite an optimist in that sense, because it's set against the backdrop of sort of AI and how, people's jobs are becoming redundant and stuff. So that's like a thing that runs on the sort of the surface of the film. The film essentially opens with her entire news department being laid off by text message, a journalist awards gala where she's just accepted an award, and she's at a loss, really, doesn't really know what to do. It then clips to Miranda Priestly, who's played by Meryl Streep, who is the hegemon of the Runway magazine, and they're having a bit of a PR crisis, a PR disaster, because it's transpired that some of her brands have been using sweatshop labor to manufacture their products. This isn't anything new. We know the fashion industry is laden with this. But essentially, Andy Sachs is brought back to Runway to essentially manage this PR problem. And it ends up becoming a film really about, again, power, I suppose. Emily Blunt's character is working at Dior. Emily, okay, she is essentially wanting to get her foot back in with Runway, but at this time wants to actually run it. So she's begins to sort of manufacture a conspiracy and a buy off, basically, to try and push Miranda out. It's unsuccessful. The good people prevail, and they manage to keep control of Runway. And Andy Sachs ends up coming back to work for Runway full time, and it's written and directed in the same sort of smug style as the first. It continues those themes, it continues those tropes, recognizes that its predecessor is 20 years old, so it plays off on some of these and some of the old stereotypes and things that, are of their time, and it doesn't really hold them to account in a way that it probably should have done, but at the same time plays with them and, sort of in a comedic way acknowledges that they were a little bit, probably not, the stereotypes around weight, for example, and dressing and how one dresses. They're still there in this, because that's the tone of the film, really, the tone of the characters and the tone of the environment in which they work. So, yeah, I mean, it's a film about revenge. It's a film about power and fashion, and it was nice to see, the original cast reprising their roles. It was funny. I thought it was passable as a sequel. I did actually enjoy it, despite the undercurrent of sarcasm in my voice. The Devil Wears Prada 2, Marcus. There you go.
Lovely.
The Devil Wears
Thank
Prada
you
2.
very much, Callum, as always. You know what? I really liked it. And I liked it so much, I thought I preferred it to the first one. I'm going to give a bit of background to that to start with, and the fact that I only watched the first one a week before watching the second, knowing that this was coming up and we're going to watch it. And I think that probably coloured my experience a little bit, because it is absolutely a film of that era, not just stylistically and what they're talking about, but it was a moment. It became a cult classic, iconic, and people remember it for that. I think the characters are very much what people connected with and found quite big and bold and enticing. But when you watch it for the first time now, I think that, as you've mentioned, there are lots of there's a lot of stereotyping in it and a lot of like body shaming and things like that. And I know it's meant to be a bit of a critique of the fashion industry, but I don't think the first film goes far enough to show it as a critique. And actually, the main character of Andy does relish being part of that world, and then kind of changes her mind at the end of it. But it is still glorifying that quite a bit. And then also, I just think it was I'm watching it this is a bit ridiculous. And I get it, it's a kind of iconic thing at the time, but it never really does anything with itself. It's just very it felt very shallow. And I know it's critiquing that, but I don't think the film does enough to go, oh, look how ridiculous this industry is. It courts the industry at the same time. And I think this film is still slightly guilty of that, in the sense that on one hand, it's taken the mick, but on one hand, it's caught in the industry. It's it wants to go, oh, look how ridiculous this is, and oh, look, the main character's based on a real person. But at the same time, oh no, but if you're into fashion, please like this film as well, because it's got loads of cool stuff in it. But what I liked about this film is it felt that it had more depth. It was a lot more self-aware. And it had to be self-aware, because you can't just make that same film now because of all those reasons that I've described.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, and it looks like it would feel really out of touch. So the only way they could make this film would be by being self-aware and having a sense of humour about both the first one, but then the world that it exists in. But I think it managed its self-awareness well. And what I mean by that is that it's not just a sequel that plays fan service, and it does do a lot of fan service, but I think that's inescapable for any sequel of a legacy film, which is essentially coming back when it doesn't need to come back, but is doing it to be oh yeah, we get to see all these characters again. Because again, I think the Devil Wears Prada is about the characters. That's what people relate to and find interesting and fascinating, whatever you want to go into. And maybe this element didn't land with everyone, or people didn't like this to it, but it does add depth to itself. And I don't think, for the sake of adding depth, the self-awareness, and again, when I say it manages its self-awareness well, it's not just saying, oh, look, this is funny, or that was ridiculous. It does, and there's good throwbacks, and there's good jokes about itself and the characters, but it builds on that by going, well, let's actually have a little bit of critique of the modern world, and let's place these characters in the world we live in now and see how they would react in that world. And it actually, without you expecting it to happen, poses a few little moral questions and conundrums, because the big push of this film is, okay, here's this legacy fashion world and these people who are dead influential in it now being challenged by tech billionaires who are coming for their culture. And the point it's trying to say is oh, the tech billionaires want to buy up everything that's sacred and everything. And there's a bit where Kenneth Branagh's character, I can't remember the exact line, but he's saying to his wife, again, can't remember any of the characters' names, Miranda, that they're talking about the life being sucked out of her industry, and he's oh, the life's being sucked out of everything. And there's something quite prophetic about that, and profound, that is actually quite touching for our era. But what I mean when it explores an interesting moral conundrum is because then you feel yourself siding with the people that you were detesting in the first film.
Yeah, that was
And I know it's
yeah.
not, the film's never fully black and white. It's not a good against evil thing. I think I'd be pushing it too far to try and stretch that out of The Devil Wears Prada. But it is quite clear in the first film. It's like, oh, she's ridiculous. Like, I can't believe they work like that. And then there's a bit of a redemption at the end from Miranda. But with this, you are drawn to the cause of that. And I think the filmmaker's trying to take it to a bit of a higher plane by saying, oh, it's fashion is art and art is culture. And that's everything that we love and stand for. Which makes me realise that the filmmaker behind it, as much as it was a bit of a mick take at first, does definitely love fashion and the fashion world, because this is like, oh my God, we don't want it to go, even how horrific the industry can be. Like, this is an attack on art and everything. So you then you're pitting these two entities against each other of like the now modern tech barons have come in stealing all culture and everything that's great about the world because they can pick it off, as displayed by the kind of Bezos-esque character who had a glow up and then was then chasing after all the women and trying to buy up everything, then pitting them against Miranda and Runway and all of that side of things. So you've got this, what is for some a detestable fashion industry against then the evil tech industry. And you're like, oh, this makes a fascinating film, but then also leaves you feeling a little bit empty for many reasons around it. And I'm not saying it was an out and out prophetic film that was meant to be saying all these things, but I think it did it well. I don't think it was cheap or tacky in what it was doing, or was saying it just to try and win cheap likes on the internet or anything. I genuinely think it was a good sequel for fans, but it actually gave you depth and meaning to it. And I enjoyed that element of it. I went into it thinking, what's this going to be? The first one was fine. It's going to be a continuation of that. I was like, all right, it's thoughtful. And it rounded itself off at the end, like in a way the first one didn't really. It was just kind of a little bit like, oh, okay, right, done. Yeah, let's get through this. But this had a coming together that worked. It felt quite poignant. And you know what? Surprisingly, I liked it. Whew, there's a lot. It's a lot to get out on that. It's a lot to get out on that. But like, yeah. I'd like to hear what you think on that, because I know there I've gone in and placed this as like a film that's actually got a bit more depth than you might see on the surface. Do you think it had any depth? And if so, what do you think about the idea of it pitting tech against art?
I mean, the thing is, right, I think with any sort of sequel like this, there's always going to be a sense of let's make something that was successful in the past and let's try and repackage it for the times in which we live. So the film itself was only ever going to be for the fans. It was never going to try and get more new people in, really. Also, anyone that, you know, why would you go and watch The Devil Wears Prada 2 having not seen The Devil Wears Prada? I think it retains the smugness of the characters and the innocence of Andy Sachs, a character played by Anne Hathaway. It retains all those personalities that I found quite annoying in the first film.
Right.
Like the smugness of these people prancing around in this industry where they feel as though they're the most important people in the history of capitalism or whatever. And they feel like they're doing some sort of moral good, or they have some moral agency and moral purpose. And the smugness I found quite annoying. But at the same time, I really enjoyed the first film because I quite liked the glamour of it, and I quite liked in spite of that smugness,
but that's
and
kind
in spite of that arrogance,
it's compelling in spite of itself.
Yeah, and like and you're right in what you're saying. You know, in the film, Runway is going through a hostile takeover by these tech bros. You know, it's like wolves in suits and ties. You know, it's a hostile takeover by, you know, the type of guy that went to Harvard Business School and he rode. You know what I mean? It's like that sort of like, you know, the almost Trump, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Musk-esque, like hybrid that also, God, that's awful, isn't it? If all those people just coalesce together as one person, oh my God, be awful. Be like some sort of weird, oh God, be like Godzilla and King Kong, like come together, like. But like the film pitches itself as this sort of like, these characters pitch themselves as morally righteous. They're the last of the honest ones in a world that is being overrun by inadequacy and a lack of integrity. We're the only ones that have integrity.
But that's kind of what I think's interesting about it, is that
but it's self-righteous. It's self-righteous in itself, though, isn't it?
The points that it raises and the things it makes you think about are legit and absolutely on the money, but it's coming from, again, people and characters that you still think are quite corrupted in their own way. And that's why it makes you feel like a little bit bereft, because it's like, oh, we're now getting our societal critique from people who are already in a broken industry and have broken characters. Yeah.
Also getting societal critique from people who work in an industry that, arguably are responsible for at least elements of the mess that we're in. So there's a sort of morally righteous aspect that the characters adopt that I just think is a little bit exhausting, but at the same time that is the film, that is The Devil Wears Prada, and that's why I went to see the second one, because when I watched the first one I was like, this is cool, this is good fun. So I went to see the second one with that in mind, knowing that I would find the characters annoying. I went in spite of that.
Speaking of annoying characters, can we talk about the love interest?
Oh God, the Australian guy.
Because this is one thing that when I came out of it, I had a lot of good stuff to say, as I just have, but it just felt like Andy's love interest in it, Peter. It felt like a really pointless subplot, which nothing happened with it.
Peter Bradshaw mentioned this in The Guardian, and I actually agreed with him. He was like, it was dreary. It was like watching Two Chairs Mate. Peter Bradshaw didn't write that.
No.
But it's like
that one.
But it's like it's just the chemistry. I was just like, because Anne Hathaway is fantastic. Like, she could bring chemistry to any role that she does, and she does. She brings chemistry to any form of role. But it just didn't work. I don't know. The script. I don't know if it was the script or the.
It's not just that from my perspective.
I don't know.
Didn't do anything with the subplot, so it felt like it was a half-hearted effort to add in. It's kind of like it was a subplot designed by committee. It's like, we have to have some romance in this. Like, we just have to. All right, but we don't want to then undermine the lead characters by making it all about the love interest. Fine, so that can't be too much. But then we don't want it to be a problematic relationship. That's not what we're exploring. Fine. But it felt like it was almost as if they didn't want to have this subplot in the film. It didn't fit the plot, but it just was like a filmic thing of like, if we're gonna release a film this big, we have to have some kind of romance in it. And they put it in, and it is kind of just pushed to the side. Like, the only real purpose I could see is that he became a bit of a sounding board for Andy when talking about her thoughts, feelings, and ambitions of what she was doing. And then that kind of allowed a little bit of that think out loud bit. But it felt strange. It felt like to put a decent amount of time into this happening. And also it was quite forced, the meet as well. So that combination of, as you say, I agree, it didn't feel like the chemistry was there. But didn't feel like the chemistry was there because it was almost as if the filmmakers didn't want this to be a subplot. It just felt a bit forced in. And then at the end, like, oh, she goes to see him, and you're not really that bothered about it anyway because it's not really been part of it. And yeah, it was strange. I've not got an issue with it in the sense that it didn't add anything to the film, but I don't think it took anything away from the film. It just kind of happened, and at the end I was like, oh, that was a bit weird, wasn't it?
Well, it's a reference to the first film, isn't it? Like, she has that love interest with the rich mulleted man. You know, that Char went, you know, she has
Rich
that love
mulleted man.
She has that love interest in when she goes to Paris. And it's like fleeting. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's the same formula. The formula is exactly the same in the second one as it was in the first one, which is kind of to be expected. I mean, they weren't exactly going to change what worked the first time round. You know, but it's that idea of, you know, it's consensus, conflict, some agreement, conflict again, resolution, the end. You know,
And that's film.
and that's the Devil Wears Prada too.
I just want to go back to what I was saying before and why I thought this was interesting and why I did get a good amount from it, surprisingly so, is because this idea that it was exploring from the perspective, granted, of the people in the fashion industry in this film, but this is why I thought it was even more compelling, because it was strange to like hear it from this perspective. But essentially, the degradation of culture. What do you think about this notion that The Devil Wears Prada 2, which wasn't really a part of the first film, has took the leap to do that and getting that message and that societal critique from it? Because we love a film that does that. We talk endlessly about films that like to basically have a look at the way the world is structured, what's wrong with it, and pick holes in it. And this does that. It just feels strange that it's doing it, because what is actually quite a mainstream and historic film for just being a little bit chick flicky, a little bit casual watching cult film. But it definitely makes a decision to do that in this. Do you think it's valid, and do you think it stands up in this film?
I mean, the first film did this, though. This film is doing the exact same thing that the first one did. Like, in the first one, the people who work at Runway are forward-thinking. They are engaging with the latest ideas. They are, you know, at the forefront of fashion. They are at the forefront of design. And that accounts for their smugness, you know? And this one is exactly the same, except they're still saying the same thing. We're at the forefront of fashion. We're brilliant. We're amazing. We tell the truth. And then but that's in the face of technological change.
There's a vulnerability to them in this film.
There is a vulnerability to them, absolutely. But they're reiterating that in spite of that, they are still pursuing honest ideas and honest ways of thinking and working and living. So the film is doing the same thing. It's just in terms of saying how, you know, wonderful they are. It's just, you know, modern times doesn't apparently recognize how wonderful they are, because AI is replacing them, and
this is
like
why
that.
I think it's a fascinating look. Like, without maybe even then realizing that, obviously it is purposeful, the critique that they're making, but why I find it so compelling is that it's not like someone coming from a totally different viewpoint who's had something consistent before. It's almost coming from a similar perspective, but they were the ones of power years ago, and their power's diminishing.
Well, they're nostalgic. They're nostalgic for their past.
But as I said before, the critique and the exploration of it is on the money. If this was coming from like some different, like, down and out film that we like, and it was a bit more introspective and they were on a road journey through America, we'd feel some more potency in it. But again, this is why I think it's a unique take on it, because it's the very people who held the power and influence and feel it diminishing who are the ones who are putting forward the very valid critique. But then as a viewer, you kind of then got to choose between this old world with all its flaws, but then the scary new world that's taken over it. And it's like almost, I don't want to say two evils, because that might be a bit strong, but what you're looking at the worst case is yes, absolutely. You can get on board with that notion of like, oh, everything that's artistic and beautiful and pure is being ripped apart by the tech industry. But then the flip of that is when you actually look into the world of art and fashion and music has long been flawed with problems. So like we hold art true to ourselves, but as soon as you expose like what it's backed on, then you kind of have to stare at the face in it. But what's tricky about that is we all accept these contradictions every day in our lives. Like we sit here reviewing films, talking about how important filmmaking it is and how great it is that an art form, that film can explore these bigger themes and ideas. But the film industry is absolutely flawed and full of contradictions and issues, as is every industry built around art. And what this maybe inadvertently is doing is saying, look, we are collectively feeling a real loss of art and humanity and purity that comes with that. And there's a scary time ahead where we could degrade the quality and meaningfulness of art. But you have to remember that industries that are built on art are all flawed themselves. And this is what this film then does, is like, oh yeah, I do agree with this, but then you're facing your own contradictions in the face. And that's why I just thought it was so meaningful without it maybe realizing it, because it was like, shit, this is exactly the kind of contradictions we hold in our mind day to day, and it's just laying them out in front of me.
You've really come full circle with The Devil Wears Prada, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, I really have. And I don't know, it's spoken to me in a way that I didn't think it would do. And maybe it didn't even intend to.
Well, there you go. You've
Shall we
said
wrap
it
it
all.
up on that?
Let's wrap it up on that. It feels
Callum,
like an
please
appropriate.
give me your closing thoughts, views, opinions, and mark out of 10 for The Devil Wears Prada 2.
It's passable. It's passable as a sequel. It's good fun. I laughed. I didn't cry, and it didn't change my life, but I laughed, and that's fine. I thought, it knew exactly what it was doing, and it lent into its own tropes, and it lent into its own stereotypes, and did challenge it and critique it a little bit, and was quite self-reflective in that sense. I thought it was fine. I didn't get that much from it in the way that you did. There's certainly elements, of that idea of power structure and things. And I enjoyed it. I thought Stanley Tucci was fantastic, obviously,
I was going to add that in as well. I did really enjoy it.
Fantastic suits, looking fantastic. They all look fantastic. Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt,
it's some unbelievable
Meryl
looks
Streep.
in it. It did make me feel like I need to go and freshen my wardrobe up.
And he makes me only go and get a new face cream. Like, honest to God, like they are the most stylish people in Hollywood. They're just glowing.
You spend enough money on face cream.
Now, this is, look.
Now we're on a visual medium.
Yeah. Someone will comment on this being like, you look like shit.
Yeah, probably on TikTok.
Yeah, I know. So much abuse. So much abuse on TikTok.
Yeah.
That is not an excuse, by the way, for everyone, guys. Don't just all pile in because you feel like... I know how the internet works. You're all sheep. Anyway, 6 out of 10.
Thank you very much, Callum. As I have expressed and as you have very wisely touched upon, it did really give me something, this. I think it's maybe the combination of not expecting that out of it and just thought it was going to be an extension of the first film, which I thought was fine. But it touched upon themes, not touched upon it, I think it nailed themes that I like to consider and feel are very pertinent, but in this weird way of it, the angle it was coming from, without fully realizing it, it put you in this kind of weird moral conundrum of being drawn into also a group and a style of character that also is fully flawed. But as I then went on to discuss before, maybe consider the whole world of art and artistry and the industries behind it and everything, the whole fabric of the world built round. And I think if a film can do that to me when all I was expecting was some nice outfits and a good bit of music, then I'm gonna pat it on the back and say fair play. I think it was comedic and at points a little bit emotional as well. It did get me. And also, you know what? Cinema. We said this about Project Hail Mary. I don't know if it's just because I'm now going to a more popular cinema, but it was a big cinematic release. I went into a big screen. There was loads of people there, and that felt good. And I've been enjoying going watching these big cinematic releases with a lot of people in a big cinema and enjoying it, 'cause that is what it's all about. Even if we put all of the criticality aside, sitting amongst a lot of people enjoying a film is great. So I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. I did thoroughly enjoy it. That was The Devil Wears Prada 2. Pleasantly surprised. And
Nice.
that's that. That is the episode, Callum. Thank you very much for joining. We've had a really varied conversation today, from Scotch eggs to the degradation of society as a whole. But that is what we have. We have range, we have balance, we have consideration. And if you enjoyed that range, balance and consideration, please do subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to on. Come and join us on Instagram and TikTok at the Glacé Film Club, where you can leave comments, positive or negative. And you can also share films that you'd like us to watch. Get in touch with us. Let us know about our conversation, what you think of it. And we love to chat. We love chatting film, so please come and join us over there. If you weren't watching this episode, we are on YouTube and also on Spotify. You can watch the whole episode on there now. But hey, if you like the classic podcast experience, keep on listening. We'll keep on speaking. The audio will be delivered to your ears. But that is that. Until the next episode. That was another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. We'll see you all later.